Does the famous primary song Gethsemane deserve its place in the new LDS hymnal? Today I'm digging into what is now hymn 1009 in the new LDS hymnal, Gethsemane by Melanie and Roger Hoffman. There has been a lot of talk about this song and its inclusion in the new hymnal in the music Facebook groups, in the LDS Music Facebook groups. And honestly, a lot of people have been beating it to a pulp. I think it's getting a little mean-spirited. It's been a bit much. Really, at the end of the day, I believe church music is all about the message of the piece, not necessarily the style. When it comes to me and my personal tastes, I'm really of two minds when it comes to this song. On the one hand, I love the message. I love how much the kids love to sing this song, and I'm almost positive that's why it's been included. But on the other hand, it's written in a style that doesn't really do much for me personally. I'm not going to pass a verdict on this song in this video. I'll let you decide how you feel about it. But in this video, I'm going to draw your attention to how the song is built and offer some thoughts about how it could be written in a different way if one chose to write it in a different style. Building block number 1. Pop song structure. Gethsemane is written in a different formal structure than most of our primary songs. Most of our primary songs come in either verse alone structure or verse chorus structure. Occasionally there's one that has verse, a mini bridge or a pre-chorus, and then a chorus, like I'm Trying to Be Like Jesus. And then we get the double melody songs like A Child's Prayer and others. Those are the more typical formal structures for primary songs in our tradition. This one is written in a pop song framework, which is, and there's variations on this, but in this particular case, we start with verse 1 here at the first green line. Then we go to our first chorus, Gethsemane. Then we go to verse 2 down here at bar 20, and then the DS all coda takes us back to the little sign there where we repeat the chorus. So far we have verse 1, chorus 1, verse 2, chorus 2. After chorus 2, the coda sign takes us down here to bar 28 where we get a full-on bridge, which is like the climax of the song. This was done by Jesus. The fight was won by Jesus. And then we end with chorus 3 repeated twice. So that's much more of a pop song formal structure than we get in our primary children's songbook from back from the 80s. So it is what it is. It's not that this is better or worse or anything like that. But because of the nature of the structure, there are potentially some challenging things for a general congregation, and it's mostly this idea of the DS all coda. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's a little bit confusing at first, but people are going to get used to it. And hey, it's a chance for us to teach a little bit of music notation to our congregations. So I think it's okay. Basically, if you're not familiar with the DS all coda, it means that we sing through the whole song all the way until we get here to 24, 5, 6, and to bar 27, where we have this little sign that says DS all coda. So that means dal segno al coda. It's Italian for go back to the sign, the S sign, until you see the coda sign. So it's a kind of a repeat. So we go back to the sign, al segno, and then il segno, and then we go to the coda when we reach that the second time, and that jumps us over here. So, that's very, very common in pop songs to have this kind of a thing. The reason that they had to do that is because verse 1 and verse 2 don't match up exactly. So verse 1, Jesus climbed the hill to the garden still. His steps were heavy and slow. But verse 2, he felt all that was sad, wicked or bad, all the pain we would ever know. It's mostly the same, but there are enough differences that trying to write verse 1 and verse 2 within the same 8-bar framework would get awfully messy with all the alternate possibilities. So it makes sense why they had to write it out this way as far as notation goes. So it is what it is. We're going to figure it out. Congregations will figure it out. It's such a popular song. People are going to roll with it. I think it's going to be okay. Building block number 2, Aeolian mode melody and harmony. Gethsemane is written in the key signature of D minor. However, it's not a true D minor scale that's being used here. We have the D Aeolian mode, which is the D natural minor. Typically, when we write in minor in a church context, we use the Bach way of using minor, which is using the melodic minor scale with harmonic minor to create our harmonies. So in this particular case, in the key of D minor, you would see C sharp. That's sort of the traditional way to use minor, but this song is written with natural minor, so we don't have any C sharps. Oops. I like the Aeolian mode a lot. I think it's quite fun to use. And what I think was a really good decision, actually, to choose the Aeolian mode for Gethsemane, because one of the things Aeolian allows you to do is switch very easily between the major mode and the minor mode. So the piece starts on D for D Aeolian, but it very easily slips to F major, which has the same key signature. In fact, the verses are focused in the D minor Aeolian mode, and then the chorus slips into an F major centric key structure, which makes sense. It's talking about the sadness of Gethsemane, but also the joy and the positivity for us that he died for us. So it's a really good decision. This type of writing is reminiscent of folk music and also of composers from the early 20th century like Ralph Vaughan Williams, the British composer, and some others. Vaughan Williams wrote often in modes, Aeolian or Dorian or some others. What's a little bit different about this one is at the end, they do a Picardy third. You can see in this second ending, the piece is supposed to end in D minor, but they end in D major. That's a little bizarre for Aeolian mode. Typically, Aeolian mode stays very true to the mode, and you would not have the F sharp. So they're kind of slipping in a Bach style Picardy third to the end into a style of writing that's kind of ignoring Bach's typical rules. So it's sort of an interesting crossing of styles for what it's worth. Building block 3, power chords versus voice leading. As I mentioned before, I personally love Aeolian mode music. I think it's quite beautiful. It has a lot of different kinds of colors that you can mix in, which you wouldn't get if you were sticking strictly to major key diatonic music or minor key diatonic music for that matter. So it's a nice other color within a realm of tonality that sounds familiar. So I love that they chose to use the Aeolian mode. Excuse me. This particular building block is a matter of style and taste. And boy, style and taste, it's such a subjective thing. And so that's why I think a lot of people are getting kind of up in arms and upset on one side and frustrated about all the snobs on the other side with regards to this piece being included in the hymnal. What's happening here is the composer is using the sort of traditional pop song power chords, meaning they take, like a guitar, you lay down your bar chords and you just move the bar chords up and down the neck of the guitar. Now, this is an amateur guitar technique. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's just, when you learn the guitar, it's one of the first things you can learn is to play these bar chords. It's not an advanced guitar technique at all. For that reason, a lot of people sometimes say, well, power chords are fine because look at all the guitar music that is written with bar chords. Well, just because bar chords were used doesn't mean they had to be used. There's plenty of pop music written by very fine guitarists that don't use power chords at all. They use more of a traditional Bach voice leading kind of a thing within a realm of popular music. So again, it's kind of this murky style question. Which way is right? Which way is wrong? That's probably not the right question. I have a specific personal taste, especially when it comes to church music. And personally, I don't care for the sound of power chords inside the context of church primary music, especially. Most of our primary music is built very much on a old school, traditional, resonant style of writing. Now, again, even that thing I'm saying, resonant writing, can be very construed and subjective. So what's going on here is we have these spots where the composer is like right here. See how those are all fifths? They're all perfect fifths. Perfect fifth, perfect fifth, perfect fifth. So it sounds like some rock and roll power chords. And I love rock and roll. That helped me survive my high school years, was rock and roll. But again, it's a different context, okay? So for my taste, I don't personally care for it. That being said, the person who is kind of responsible for bringing parallel fifths and parallel octaves into traditional music practice is Claude Debussy, the French composer from early 20th century, late 1800s, early 1900s. And he uses parallel fifths and parallel octaves in a really unique way for the time period. He called it planing, or at least somebody called it planing. I don't know if he did or not, but and there's some, absolutely exquisite music that he wrote using that technique. The context was different, and often they were much bigger, broad strokes than we have space for in a primary song. So for me, it's kind of mixing a style that this doesn't quite work, at least for my taste. Now, again, a lot of people love it. So great. I am glad you do. If you were inclined to feel the way that I do, and you wish you could figure out a way to keep the essence of the music intact and the essence of the message and the feel of the minor mode, but you wanted to incorporate a more traditional voice leading practice instead of the power chord practice that the composer chose for this song, I've got several suggestions. So as you know, you can always download these harmonic analyses that I do. And on this particular one, I've got all these little things in orange marked with parallel fifth, or parallel octave throughout. I've marked all of them. And then I've written out some suggestions on a third page for how I would rewrite some of these if I were to use traditional voice leading instead of the power chord strategy. So let's go to measures 7 through 10 in the original. Love and a prayer. See, that's built on this parallel idea. Excuse me. So we have the A and the D, the A on the word and the D in the bass, and that's a fifth, and it moves down to a fifth. Parallel fifths. And then another one. Okay, again, that is a certain style, and it's a certain style that gets used a lot. In this particular context, it's not my favorite, so I would consider, if you feel the way that I do, which is not necessarily the right way, you could rewrite it like we have here. That goes for measures 2 through 4 and also 7 through 10. So I have not changed the harmony. It's the same chords, but I've rewritten the voicing of those chords. So like this one goes down and this one goes up to avoid parallels. This one is in first inversion to avoid parallels, and so on. That's one example. Another example, let's see, measures. Oh, I got that totally wrong. The first one's labeled wrong. The first one should be measures 2 through 4. The second one is 7 through 10. So here, Love and a Prayer, that's the one we just played. Now down here in the chorus, we get another one of those, 16 through 17. We have this fifth, and octave. So I won't take the time to go through every one of these in extreme detail, but you can download it and have a look for yourself to see how, if you felt that you were not enjoying the power chord sounds that you're writing in your piece, and maybe that's the only type of writing you've ever done, and it's the only type of that's okay. You're starting out. You got to start somewhere, right? And again, it's not that it's against any kind of divine rules or anything like that. It's more a matter of taste. But I want you to be able to write the music that you love. And so maybe that is your taste to use power chords. If it's not your taste, this whole sheet gives you examples of how I would rewrite every one of those parallel fifth, parallel octave sections to use the more Bach style voice leading. And on that note, I mean, Vaughan Williams is an interesting character in this situation because he did use a lot of the techniques of Debussy and Ravel in this planing kind of way thing I mentioned earlier, but he's also really good with his voice leading. He's a good mixture of these styles. So it's a composer to pay attention to if you like to find these alternate ways of writing things. Building block 4, verse melody direction versus chorus melody direction. I find it interesting that the verse melody goes down in its direction and the chorus melody goes up in its direction. And the verse is typically telling the story. So we get da, 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 and then it goes down, da, 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 and then down again. So we get that kind of heavy and slow feel with the general downward motion of each measure. Each measure kind of takes it one step lower. And then it starts again with Love and a Prayer, and goes down, and then down again. So it's very descriptive. That downward Aeolian mode gives it a sad, somber quality as we tell the story of a very sad, somber thing. But then the chorus, as it shifts, and we contemplate Gethsemane and the fact that because of what he did in Gethsemane, it's a demonstration of Jesus loves me. So he went willingly to Gethsemane. And the melody shifts direction. It goes up. And then it comes back down the last time. But that direction changes the mood. Even though we haven't changed any of the diatonic chords, we're not getting chromatic at all. We're not adding accidentals. We're not being like weird and clever with our harmony. It's all diatonic. But the direction of the tune and the way the motives go down in the somber part and up in the lighter part, that's a great little way to build a piece so you can get the essence of the mood based on something that's not highly chromatic music. Building block 5, key areas for structural and emotional purposes. Now, I hinted at this before, but I think it's really cool that the verses are very much centered around the tonic of D minor, and the chorus, as you can see here, shifts to F major. And we have this focus on Gethsemane. With the Gethsemane, that's our tonic, the F. Okay, whereas before, it was all D minor, and now it's F major. Then at the next verse, we come back to a D minor feel, which D minor is actually the key of death. Requiems are written in D minor and so on. So it's a really good choice of a key to depict the Savior's sacrifice and death for us. And then the second chorus does, of course, again, the F major thing. And then once we go to the coda and we get the bridge is always a special place. Actually, one of my favorite artists in all of music is the artist Sting. And he talks about the bridge in music, about how the bridge is therapy, is what he says. And I love that because it kind of is. It's a contrasting section that draws your attention to the climactic message of the piece, and it changes the energy. And that's what happens in this bridge. I think this bridge is very nice, and we get to let the message kind of blossom to this was done by Jesus. So we stay in F major. We keep the F major mode from the chorus, but we then let F major kind of have its moment. We have this big kind of half cadence in F major that then goes back to the chorus, which it's a little ambiguous at first because it starts on D minor. So we wonder, are we going back to the way the verse is centered around D minor? And no, we're not. We're going to back to the chorus about how it's centered around F major. Yet at the last minute, it spins back around to D minor. So again, this is part of the Aeolian mode. This is a really interesting way and very easy to slip back and forth between major and minor. There's a similar kind of musical expression in the 1985 hymnal with hymn 197, O Savior, Thou Who Wearest a Crown. That was harmonized by Johann Sebastian Bach, and it's not an Aeolian, but he does do a similar thing where he keeps slipping back and forth between D major and B minor. Even on the first line, it's like, whoa, which key are we in? Are we in D major or are we in B minor? There is a modal element to that piece as well. In fact, the melody is written in the Phrygian mode, which sounds like this. But Bach superimposes that Phrygian melody on top of D major. But because it's centered around a different note of the D major scale, centered on the third note of the D major scale, as if that were the tonic, that makes it really easy to slip into the relative minor of B minor. So this Gethsemane example is not exclusive to Aeolian mode. This kind of thing can happen in other types of modal writing. But the reason I like that is because it sounds very similar to normal major music or normal minor music with different shades. And we're always looking for some kind of element of surprise or freshness in our music. That's really the essence of composition. So I find that part of this song very interesting and very effective. In the end, it's still not my personal favorite, but there are definitely some good techniques that you can learn from this song. So, what's my opinion of this hymn? Like I said, it's not musically my particular flavor of choice, but it is many people's flavor, and I think that's fine. To me, it's kind of like how I feel about whipped cream and marshmallows. Most people like whipped cream and marshmallows. I don't like them at all. But does that mean I should take away your whipped cream and marshmallows? No, but trying to convince me that it's good, that's not going to work either. So I really don't have a final word about should it be in the hymnal or should it not be in the hymnal. But at the end of the day, it's really not about style when it comes to what we're trying to do with the hymnal. What we're trying to do with the hymnal is teach the gospel. And there are a few songs that the children have attached to as much or more than this song. And if a different style can help the kids remember Gethsemane and remember Jesus and remember the message, should that get in the way? No. So at the end of the day, I'm all for having this in the hymnal for that reason. May not be my favorite musical style, but at the end of the day, that's not what matters. So if you'd like to download my complete harmonic analysis of this song and see the extra sheet with my suggestions if you were to choose to take the voice leading route versus the power chord route, that's down below this video, and there's a link in the description box below. Be sure to watch for my next video and hit the subscribe button, and do me the favor of hitting the bell too, so that you don't miss any of these. In the next review of our LDS hymns, I'm going to review the new 1201, Hail the Day That Sees Him Rise, a new Easter hymn. I'll see you in that video.